But welcome everyone to the 2021 EcoSchools Kick-off. I'm Chris Metropolis, and I'm pretty new to EcoSchools. I did start March 16th, 2020, but that was the first day of lockdown. So I actually haven't seen the EcoSchools program running normally. And hopefully this year is as close as we're going to get at the moment. But some of you might remember me from the Toronto Urban Studies Centre. I worked in outdoor education for 16 years before Pam snatched me and brought me to EcoSchools. But I'm pretty excited to be here. But now that I am with the Sustainability Office, I'm thrilled to be working with a team that literally reaches the entire board. And we have a lot of excellent teams. We've got a new one, the Energy and Climate Action Team, that is just getting started to tackle the big issues that we have with our old buildings and greenhouse gas emissions and electric vehicle charging stations and a whole bunch of future initiatives. And so we really have they have a really big mandate to make big changes in the board. And that's going to be super exciting moving forward. We have with us today, of course, Pam Miller, our illustrious instructional leader at EcoSchools. Natasha Khan is here and filling in for Jen Better, who's on a short leave. And a little bit later, we'll be meeting Linda Nacarado, who's our awesome admin assistant and a past Opal mentor. And we'll also have a member from EcoSchools Canada join us to introduce the program that we're joining with them. And we're really excited to at least attempt getting this EcoSchools year active again, given all the COVID business that's made it so difficult. And of course, I think we're still going to have many challenges and restrictions to deal with for the rest of the year. And we'll just have to be as creative as we can to make it all work. But pretty sure we can do that. And yeah, just COVID has been such a wet blanket that's made everything seem more futile and even depressing. But luckily, we're going to be sharing some better perspectives to embrace, to foster positive attitudes with you and your students, and make this year a lot more successful than last year probably seemed. We acknowledge we're hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And I'd like to extend the TDSB land acknowledgement with a video made by a group of Peel High School students. And you didn't share your sound, did you? Their version offers a deeper perspective towards reconciliation and understanding our role in the world through an Indigenous lens. And thanks, Pam, for getting the sound going on that song.
It's like, okay, 1 second. Oh, here we go. When they are home, when they are home.
To try and understand how special and powerful the Indigenous connection to Mother Earth is, let's have a look at the Honorable Harvest, which is a pledge of mutual exchange and cooperation between humankind and the land. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first. Never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only which is given. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you've taken. Share. Give thanks for what you've been given. Give a gift in return for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. So now what? Land acknowledgements aren't about placing blame. They're about taking responsibility. This is why we have land acknowledgements.
Take a moment to pause and acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat, and is now home to many other diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
Looking at last year, we kind of did a pilot project launch with EcoSchools Canada. So we had ultimately 41 schools sign up to do the program, even though we were in the depths of the pandemic. And of those 41 schools, at the end of the year, we had, I think, 22 schools submit their plans. So, and of those 22, these are the results that we got. And so pretty successful, and even 7 platinum schools. All of the participants said how much easier it was to use the EcoSchools Canada program than our old application, which could be likened to filling out your taxes. So we really wanted to get away from the whole tax paradigm and make it a fun program, as fun as possible. And I think we're really going to we've found that with the EcoSchools Canada program. Plus, it's so excellent to be part of the national program and join the TDSB with the rest of the country and be united in the EcoSchools world. Of course, their program was developed from ours. It's not going to be a whole lot different in terms of the content. We've got some goals for you today. The first, of course, being sharing effective ways to teach climate change in the classroom, and especially addressing student anxiety, because that seems to be a big thing these days, understandably. And Pam's going to talk more about that. I will walk you through registering with EcoSchools Canada, setting up your plan for the year, and choosing actions that are going to make sense for your school, and of course, making sense with the COVID restrictions and cohorting. We're also going to share the various resources and supports that we will be providing. And of course, these slides and everything from today we'll also share with you. At the end of this morning, you'll be sharing your EcoSchools knowledge with each other and thinking about the best way to move forward with the EcoSchools program, given all the challenges that we've got. Here's a quick overview of our morning. We're almost at reaching the 9:15 part, maybe a little bit early. Then we've got Linda talking about things that the TDSB is doing towards climate change and climate actions. Our break at 10. EcoSchools Canada next, and then we will do the certification application with me. We'll do the breakout room so that you've got lots of time to share amongst yourselves. At 11:30, you're back to your real world.
Great. And before we get started, maybe, Chris, you could pop the entry poll up and find out.
Oh my gosh, yes, I should do that, considering that.
It's okay. We're
the entry.
So let us know where you're at.
Thank you.
And while you're doing that poll, I'm just looking at the chat and Deborah, I'm so glad you added that. When will you be adding an Indigenous advisor team member to EcoSchools? Well, the neat thing is Mike Iso, the formal instructional leader at the Urban Indigenous Education Center, now works at Forest Valley. And so as part of that team, Mike not only gives wisdom to the outdoor education centers, but also to our team. And so we're tapping into Mike's wisdom. Actually, we got to harvest some sweetgrass at Albion the other day with him, and he led that ceremony. It was beautiful. In terms of the videos, they were made by, as I said, Peel students under my husband's drama department, and I'm happy to share those with you as well as the PowerPoint and all the information from today. So yeah, we'll be sharing those with you because they're amazing. And in fact, one of the students is Anishinaabe, and she's the one who did the Honorable Harvest one that we just shared. So so glad to be able to do more collaboration, because I think this is the way we need to go. All right, so we've got some folks that are totally new to this, so welcome. Whether your school's new or you're new, we've got great ways for you just to get started. We've got more people, got a couple years under your belt, and I love it. My belt is a black belt. We've got some people that are totally experienced, and then we've got some amazing level 5 black belts. You live, breathe, and eat EcoSchools. You are the eco geek as we are. So welcome everyone. That's super. I want to talk about taking action and acknowledge where we are mentally, physically in a COVID situation, and give you a bit of a big picture overview. So many of you know in the summer, you heard the news that the UN Secretary General, or you heard the UN Secretary General call the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as Code Red for Humanity. He continued to add the alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel burning and deforestation are choking our planet and putting billions of people at immediate risk. As the graph on the slide shows, the decisions we make today and over the next few years are critical in ensuring a safe and sustainable world for everyone, now and in the future. But as we know, for every crisis, children are the most vulnerable. And UNICEF released a report this year providing the first comprehensive view of children's exposure and vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, revealing that 1 billion children are at immediate high risk. Now, of course, the children that we teach in Toronto will also feel the impacts. If not, they're already feeling the impacts of climate change, physically, mentally, emotionally. In the chat, how might the students you teach be impacted by climate change? So go ahead and add that. How might the students you teach be impacted by climate change? And as I said, they may already be. Yes, asthma, psychological, oh my gosh, temperatures in buildings, worried, anxious, depressed, more pollution, more air pollution. We've seen even the masks with coronavirus, flooding, lots of respiratory issues. Yes, many of our families have families in other parts of the world. Climate change, Rouge Valley, ticks, fear, insecurity, inconsistent weather, food insecurity, food cost. Oh my goodness, absolutely. As you keep thinking about that, the climate change impacts on children were outlined by the Canadian Pediatric Society, and that indicates that children across Canada may be impacted by extreme weather events, like the one in Barrie this August, displacing them from their homes, or food and water shortages. Record heavy rainstorms like those in Toronto and in 2016 can override sewage facilities and contaminate our water. The summer wildfires cause dangerous levels of air pollution, and the hot and humid air from heat waves impacted the air quality. And of course, we've seen a rise in ticks and Lyme disease. Furthermore, children can disproportionately be affected by these and other climate-related changes because they're smaller. They metabolize more water, air, and food per kilogram of body weight than adults. And as their bodies are developing, some of their systems are not as developed, and so immature lungs or immature immune systems have to cope with these changes. And many of you mentioned the mental health aspects as well. And so according to a survey of 10,000 young people across 10 countries, almost half of young people say their feelings about climate change negatively impact their daily lives. So when we think about trauma-informed approaches to education, this is what we're talking about. Trauma maybe from racial injustice, but also trauma from climate change. More than 3 in every 4 young people say the future is frightening with regard to climate change. And I noticed that with my grade 8 class. I had, I think, 37 people on paper, but regularly 32 virtual grade 8 students, and they mentioned it often. They also felt very ineffective to doing anything. So what we're seeing is that children and youth who have contributed least to climate change and have no voting power, they're demanding leaders and education leaders to take just and equitable climate action. In a recent episode of What on Earth, host Laura Lynch talked with youth that are both involved in campaigns to improve climate curriculum in schools, as they feel it's a critical topic that is really not covered in any depth. But climate change is not the only existential crisis facing humans today. In fact, racial injustice is a 400-year-old crisis, with slavery existing in Canada for over 2 years. And climate change, unfortunately, takes any problem you already have and any threat you were already under and multiplies it. Populations that were already vulnerable to human rights abuses, from police violence to housing discrimination to poverty, face the biggest challenges in adapting to climate change. Because climate change has the potential to worsen their situation and thereby worsen pre-existent inequalities. It is no longer the great equalizer, but rather the great multiplier. And this graphic from Freedom to Breathe really talks about how things like racial justice is connected to healthcare, which is connected to mass incarceration, which is connected to extreme heat, and how everything is, again, multiplying the impacts. And in TDSB, we've been working on climate change for the past 20 years in the TDSB, and we're going to invite our colleague Linda Nacarado to talk about our next steps after this presentation. But the roots of the problem are much older. The practices of colonization and capitalism, including exploitation of nature and people, unrestrained extractivism, excessive pollution, deforestation, and land degradation, as well as racial and gender oppression and injustice, have led to the climate change crisis that we face today. Larissa Crawford, pictured here on the slide, is a published Indigenous and anti-racism researcher, climate change activist. She carries Métis ancestry from Penetang, I lived there once, great place, and Afro-Caribbean ancestry from Jamaica. In her interview with Oxfam Canada, she shared, we need to actively recognize that the work that we do in climate justice work must create space to restore relationships, to acknowledge the harm of systemic racism and how it is interrelated with our work with climate justice. There is a growing momentum around the world to harness the power of education to combat and adapt to climate change and ensure that young people have the critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration skills needed to take action. It's interesting that research, this is very recent research, shows that if only 16% of high students in middle-income countries were to receive a climate change education, we could see nearly a 19 gigaton reduction of carbon dioxide by 2050, depending on how it is taught. And that is why education is in the Paris Agreements, and Canada has committed to enhance climate change education. But how do we do this? So again, in the chat, what would you include, or what are you going to include around climate change, especially considering the people? What are some ideas? Absolutely. So my Wi-Fi is not great. So what I'm thinking about is, how are we going to address climate change? How might we do it to kindergartens? How might we do it to grade 8s? How might we do it to our junior students? And look at these wonderful answers. Encouraging love, focusing on the local, integrate in all areas, small steps, building empathy, make habits, doing small things like recycling, design their sustainable future, imagine a sustainable future. Yes, and get outside. So as we add our wisdom, and I'm so glad people mentioned connecting with an Indigenous worldview. Okay, so as educators, we have both an opportunity and a moral and ethical imperative to shift towards more environmental and sustainable, socially just paradigms. If our students are going to thrive and survive as contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society, we must help develop knowledge, values, and skills that support humans to survive and thrive on the planet, but in balance with other living species. And I love sort of Robin Wall Kimmer's reminder to all my relations, and sustain those that sustain us. So I've been doing a lot of reading. And as we talked earlier, as the morning started, I was pretty burnt out from last year and just feeling not very helpful and trying to work with the students in front of me. And so I was like, well, what hope can there be? And so I read a number of different books. And I'm so excited to say that A Field Guide to Climate Anxiety, the author, Sarah Jaquette Ray, is coming to our conference on November 6th. So we'll tell you about that. Zoe Weil wrote The World Becomes What We Teach. And we actually just had her, and she talks about solutionaries, which is wonderful. And so there's a recording of that available for us on the EcoSchools webinar pages. All We Can Save is all about the women in the world speaking up. And so, again, really powerful work. And then I also took time to read Courage to Teach, reminding us of the values and really reminding me why I do this work. And if you're feeling burnt out, it's a wonderful read to get you back to what's important. So as I wanted to focus our talk around three main ideas. If we can, one, tell a different story this year. If two, we can live in the world we want to save in a way that celebrates it. And three, if we can take actions that we're doing what we can with what we have where we are. So the first sort of big idea is to tell a different story. And we know that every day we're being bombarded with dramatic imagery of impending doom that is being transmitted and exaggerated by the news media. In fact, in our classrooms, I am guilty of this, showing them, the grade 8s, they can handle it, showing them how fast fashion is harming the planet. And it's number 2 compared to, the oil industry. And so we end up we overwhelm them, or we infowhelm them. We tell them that humans are bad for the planet. We give them the eco footprint exercise to see how many planets we're using up. And we're showing them apocalyptic visions like the house, sliding into the land because the sea levels are rising. But the truth is, the research is out. It isn't working. Facts don't change behaviors. And doom and gloom promote more guilt, more fear, more paralysis, and less action. The more we learn about the doom and gloom aspects of climate change, the less we do. And of course, clumping all humans as bad for the planet ignores the Indigenous reciprocal relationships with nature, or those that have contributed the least. And it also undermines our ability to try to move towards a better relationship with the earth. So the truth is, we need less information and more focused on feelings. Climate change education rarely accounts for students' emotional lives, even though research shows that emotions are central to our ability to retain and act on information. Think about how much we're working on that growth mindset versus fixed mindset when it comes to math. It's the same idea. We need to work on, an emotional positive mindset. We need to give students more options than fight, flight, or freeze. And of course, mindfulness is something to think about and something you've been doing in your classrooms. It's a practice of staying in the moment, a key form of emotional intelligence. Mindfulness can increase our capacity to be present with challenging emotions and thoughts without overacting. Mindfulness can also help us to foster courage, to move beyond fear and channel those emotions to act in effective ways rather than reactionary ways. So one article I read is, don't be fearful, just get angry and then do something with your anger. I thought that was kind of cute. Another way of changing the story is to widen the scope. And some of you mentioned that we want this sort of throughout the curriculum. So cross-disciplinary research suggests that climate change should focus on the cognitive, but also the emotions, the actions, and the justice. And sometimes we see that as the head, the hands, and the heart. Of course, in kindergarten and primary grades, that might be very local and related to helping people and all our relations as we tend to the earth and we're outside and we're nurturing things. For older grades, we could link climate justice with other types of discrimination based on social and cultural identities, including race, class, and gender. And as we consider this wider scope when we take action, students are better equipped not only to address the climate change crisis, but also to further climate and other forms of justice in doing so. And we think about our equity work in the TDSB by widening the scope and focusing on stories of environmental and climate justice. Students and educators can amplify underrepresented voices and stories. And the whole reason that Dr. Anaya Elizabeth Johnson wrote this book is because women's voices in the climate leadership arena are often suppressed, underrepresented, or just plain absent. So we need to ensure we are promoting the ideas, histories, and experiences of people from one or more marginalized personality or positionalities to ensure ongoing shifts in historic power inequities. And what I love is I'll be sending you some links within the PowerPoint. This one, climate storytelling for the classroom, is an activity, I think it's grade 4 and up, where students get to create and tell their climate story and put those things together. And so we're advocating for student voice. The last thing when we think about telling a different story is we need to hack the negative story. 80% of messaging around climate change is framed in negative terms. As a result, most youth can imagine the end of the world, then visualize a better future. And Ellen Kelsey, who was a keynote speaker a couple of years ago, writes in her new book, Hope Matters, that environmental solutions are emerging and maturing all over the world, but are often ignored or trivialized or underreported. She started the hashtag Ocean Optimism and kind of showed the amazing things that were happening. I mean, our scholars point out that our brains are wired to focus on the urgent and immediate threats, and the media for sure plays to this. But we need to teach students to be critical of the stories they're hearing, how they make them feel, and then be re-inspired by solution journalism. And this magazine, yes, is a solution journalism, and there's so much great stuff on here. So really the question then becomes, what narrative do you want to include more of in your practice? What do you want to tell more of in your practice? Do you want to tell more solutions, more underrepresented stories? Do you want to have the students tell their stories? What do you want to include? Yeah, I'm going for the solutionary stories myself. Yes, and student stories, how they're doing, their gardening, how they're developing empathy, the way they think. These are things that we can help them with. The next idea is that we want to live in the world we want to save. We want to be part of the world, not humans are all bad for the environment. And if we're going to live in that world and build our relationship with the earth that sustains us, we need to ditch the guilt about how our consumer habits are destroying the earth, because it actually won't change our behaviors. Notice I'm not saying change our consumer behaviors. That still has to happen, but we've got to ditch the guilt about it. And that's because, again, this is from research, hearing about climate change often promotes people to go out and buy more stuff. Who knew? And the reason is our guilt and fear cause us to seek happiness elsewhere. And what better solution than retail therapy? And I happen to be guilty of that and maybe live in a house that's guilty of that. I think I've seen more Amazon packages arrive than ever. So according to a recent study, gratitude for nature's gifts can rein in our existential angst about climate change. Expressing appreciation for what we've been given inspires a sense of contentment that makes people want to give in turn rather than consume more. And again, that's really that braiding sweetgrass, honorable harvest, sustain that sustains you. See nature's air and water as gifts and treat them. Say the things that we are receiving, like the coffee, as gifts. So bottom line, when we focus on gratitude, wonder, and cultivating joy, we are more likely to be restoring relationships than destroying them. And I love what's being put into the chat. Absolutely. And many of you know this well. Reconnecting outside, or sort of getting outside, connecting to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. Time spent in nature also positively contributes to our well-being. And so those of you who know that, when kids are stuck, when I worked at HJ Alexander, and I see Nadia here, the kids were in apartment buildings and they didn't have time or opportunities to get out in nature, and they were not being connected to the well-being aspects. So that's so important. All of students should have this opportunity. And of course, I love what Adrienne Marie Brown says. She's a scholar, a writer, a doula, a Black feminist, and an activist. And she talks about partnering. Don't save the earth, partner with the earth and work together to restore those relationships. So the last part of tell a new story, live like in the world that you want to save. And the last one then becomes take action. So again, taking a quote which we thought was from Teddy Roosevelt, but really from Bill Widener, do what you can with what you got, where you are. And I want to speak to individual actions. To reach our climate change goals, each of us needs to take action individually, collectively, locally, and globally. But it is unjust to put the burden of climate change solely on individuals. Individual actions alone are insufficient to address the climate crisis. If we fixate on voluntary action alone, it takes the pressure off the push for government policies to hold corporate polluters accountable. And when oil industries such as BP ask people to calculate their carbon footprint and take those individual steps towards shrinking their footprint, BP is shifting the blame to individuals so that they can be off the hook. The truth is we need both. We need to advocate for systemic change while still encouraging individual behavior changes. Of course, there is so much power in the collective. And that's why we do this work at EcoSchools. That's why the small actions that you do matter. Right now, there are at least 1 and possibly 2 million organizations worldwide working on issues of environmental and social justice. EcoSchools alone right now is in 3,000 schools across Canada. And that started with 3 people. So when TDSB amalgamated, Richard Christie, Eleanor Dudar, and Mika Foster looked at what EcoSchools could do, put it into 15 schools. Our biggest time was in 400 schools in Toronto. And now when we gave the program away to EcoSchools Canada, they've gone worldwide. We are 3,000 plus schools strong. So change often stops with a small group, a new way, and then with critical mass, industry, government, and institutions take notice. Of course, working with others helps us overcome feelings of helplessness and powerlessness, and we become change agents together. The last thought I want you to think about is small. Redefine action. The most important thing, if there's one thing at all that I want you to walk away with, if we feel that our actions will never be big or impactful enough to solve the problem, we end up adopting a drop in the bucket mindset that causes despair and hopelessness. The bigger the problem, the less fixable it seems, and so the more likely we are to do nothing. But to combat our paralysis, we need to be reminded that small actions and connections do create complex systems, and then nudge ourselves to take the next first small action. And so these graphics show you that small actions are, again, build the ball of systems. And really, that's all there ever is. Small actions committed by people like us make the difference. So we need to remind students that they don't need to be more powerful than they already are. Encourage them to do what they can with what they have. And so walk away with redefining action that attending meetings, caring for each other, celebrating your battery box. These are important things because small is all. So how are we supporting you? So to support you in this work, because not all of us feel that we have the climate change background or education to make this work, we're continuing to offer conferences that are free, and that ours is coming up November 6th on a Saturday morning, so we can do it free. And then we've got the webinars, and both of those are on our new website, which we'll show you. We'll also offer this year office hours. So we may not be able to address all the questions today, this morning. And so what we're going to do is every Wednesday and Thursday in My Path, you can register for office hours. It's really your time to come in and ask your specific questions. How am I going to do this? And we'll brainstorm together. Direct supports. Of course, you can still email us, call us, and invite us in virtual meetings. So if you want us to be present while your kids are meeting with you virtually, we would love to be part of that. We are excited to continue working with the outdoor education staff, the TOES staff, and continue to offer eco-coaching. Because there's no platinum interim audits this year, we're going to offer eco-coaching to everyone. So that way you get the one-on-one support with you and your team midway through the year to check in how you're doing, to inspire you, to celebrate what you're doing, so you'll have the inspiration to keep moving. And all of this will be always advertised through our newsletters. So while Jen's away, we're hoping that Natasha Kahn, one of our newest hires, will be able to put on the mantle of the newsletter and offer you certification tips like highlight an action card and highlight COVID or highlight one of our partners to show you how you can do this work. We also are excited to talk about our Youth Leadership Action Climate Guide. And it's a brand new, it's a huge work in progress. We're working on getting it launched for November 25th. And it comes with how youth can take this work step by step. It's written for youth. And it comes with how to apply, with supports to how to apply for the City of Toronto grants. Alarani, I see your work. Is eco-coaching for students? Yes, it is eco-coaching with students. Absolutely. And how about workshops during the school day? Yes, we will be looking at that to inspire you. Sometimes it's related to money. So absolutely. Oh, and the newsletters, Solange, Hina, absolutely. We'll add you to the newsletter. And this time there's 2 newsletters you can add. One is the TDSB one, which will be very specific for TDSB issues. And the second is the EcoSchools Canada newsletter you can be part of. So if you don't mind filling up your emails, subscribe to one or the other or both. And the last thing, the reason we went with EcoSchools to do both or to be part of EcoSchools is because they have resources in French. They have resources for campaigns. I know Chantal is doing the happy dance. The entire platform is in French. And they have tracking sheets and videos and webinars. So if we've gone too fast today on how to do something, check their webinars or their little videos on how to in French and in English. So finally, I know I've been waiting for this for a long time. So I'm so excited to say that this is how we'll be able to support you. I'm going to leave this next slide up in terms of what small action might you start this year, individually, collective, politically, because to know that your actions do make a difference. We'll be inviting you to share these thoughts in our cafe later in the program, but just be thinking about this, and you're welcome to add that to the chat as well. Okay, I know, so exciting about the French resources. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of inspiration about how to change the story, how to take small actions, and how to celebrate you and the earth that we live on. I'm now going to pass our program over to Linda. Linda Nacarado is here with us, and you may know her from Opal Schools. She's moved into a new role in EcoSchools. And so that is going to tell us what the board is doing, because you need to know that your work is not just the only work that the board is doing, and that the board is putting their money where their mouth is. Okay, so take it away, Linda.
Great, thanks, Pam. All right, so the main focus, what I'll be showing you here today, is around what's changing, what's coming in the future, and what was outlined in this recent report. So hot off the press, just went to the regular board meeting last night. This report has been really positively received, and so I'm excited to tell you a little bit about what is in here. So the context behind this report is that in 2019, when the City of Toronto came out with their climate emergency declaration, our Board of Trustees endorsed that statement or that declaration. And in 2020, a report was put forward that outlined planned actions to address climate change. And that was unique because it looked both at what's happening in our classrooms, how are we encouraging climate action through climate literacy, but also facility operations. And the big change that came there is that we now have a team that's actually focused on energy and climate action. So looking at how we as a board can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And what's just come to board is this annual report. And so this outlines really strategic actions that are meaningful and achievable that the board will be focusing on for the next year. And framing the climate action report is sort of this quote, this idea that our students don't believe we're doing enough. They don't believe that the current efforts are enough, and that is leaving them with a feeling of hopelessness, of fear, and anxiety. So we have to do more. And what's really important is that those investments need to be balanced. It needs to be investments not only in what we teach, but also the infrastructure of the board. How are buildings operated? And how are our school grounds designed and maintained? How is that responding to the climate crisis? Because traditionally, we've been really good at this. There have been great turnout for these kickoffs, lots of interested educators, lots of work done around professional learning. What we need to see is a balance with what happens at a board level, because you can't do it all. You need bigger system change. And so these are operational changes and investments we can make to show that the board is committed to climate action. The report outlines 6 key areas. And again, these areas were selected based on what's meaningful in terms of impact and what is achievable. And so there's 22 actions that were outlined. I'm not going to go through all of those. I'll highlight one from each of them, but I really encourage you to take a look at the report if there's a particular section that you're excited about. Okay, so for this first section, the highlight action here is really encouraging youth-led climate change action projects. And partnering with the city, we're able to offer city grants to help make those actions a reality. And so this is really supporting that new resource Pam mentioned, the Youth Climate Action Guide, which should be coming out sometime in the late fall. All right, the next section here is all about buildings. This is a really important one to tackle if we're going to make significant changes to our emissions and our greenhouse gases. And if you see that chart that I've included there shows just how much our emissions total come from natural gas, which is the heating of our buildings. And most teachers have had the experience of being in a classroom that's boiling hot in the middle of winter and needing to crack open the window. So this example action is all about establishing better supports for our caretakers to efficiently operate buildings. Things like automated systems, help desks, professional learning, so that way we can be much more effective in how we operate buildings. The next section is transportation, and this is an exciting one. We are starting the transition to electric vehicles. And so what does that look like? Well, it will be the purchasing of new vehicles that are electric. It'll mean investing in the infrastructure for charging stations in the future, and it'll be training for our staff or mechanics so that they can work on electric vehicles. All right, the next section here, our urban forest. We have a pretty ambitious goal of doubling the amount of trees that are planted annually at the TDSB. This is part of the TDSB large tree planting program, and maybe you've received trees on your school ground as part of this program. The exciting thing for me about this is how schools will be selected. We're specifically looking at climate change mitigation and need. So taking into consideration things like existing canopy coverage, your LOI index, your proximity to major arterial roads and highways, and what that means for particulate matter in the air, and heat vulnerability. And we're getting this data from sources like Toronto Public Health, so we can really strategize and pinpoint where we need to be planting trees. Okay, the next section here is all about communication. The TDSB's actually had a long history of supporting environmental initiatives, about 20 years of this type of work, including key milestones like pioneering the EcoSchools program that is now national. What we haven't been great at doing is communicating that. And we're hoping to change this with our new environmental website. And someone will pop that link into the chat for you if you haven't gotten it already. But this used to be what housed just EcoSchools related information. It's much broader in scope now that you can find information related to education, but you can also find information around energy initiatives, around solar panels in schools, school ground renovations, and work around much broader environmental topics. And the last section here is the Environmental Legacy Fund. This is one that maybe, again, you've had some experience with, but if you're new to this idea, the fund was created back in 2010. It was part of the first climate report that went to the board. And what's housed inside this fund, the revenues are included from the sale of carbon credits, income from the sale of electricity that's generated by the TDSB-owned solar roof projects, and also the sale of TDSB e-waste. And currently, we're using those funds to support professional development opportunities. Maybe you've received an AQ subsidy before through the Environmental Legacy Fund. The November 6th conference Pam mentioned, that's free for our educators because of the Environmental Legacy Fund. So our action here is to change the terms of references to include new sources of revenue. Basically, we want to do more environmental initiatives. We will need more funds to do that. And so we're broadening the scope so that we can have more funds that are directed into this legacy fund. And an example is utility incentives and rebates. Okay, the last piece I'm going to leave you with today is this idea of telling a different story. We know how important it is to share the positive aspects, the work that's being done. And these examples here that I've highlighted are actually found on that new website. We have a nice timeline outlining the 20 years of various initiatives and actions at the board. But did you know that while you were off working from home and dealing with all of the craziness of last year, that in our schools, over 800 drinking fountains were replaced with water bottle filling stations? So a huge win for us. This was actually made possible because of resilience funding that happened during the pandemic. And our goal is to bring us up to a standard of 1 water bottle filling station for every 250 students. So this happened in close to 480 schools across the board. Did you know that we have solar panels on a lot of our school buildings? So over 340 schools have got solar panels. What's interesting now is that on our new website, you can actually search where are those schools. You can see a Google image of their roof. You can also see the capacity. What's the solar energy that's generated at these schools? And what's the carbon offset? And we've included a link to a little activity you could actually do with your students. So this is important to kind of promote because this is not new. This actually began in 2010 that the TDSB started investing in renewable energy. And the last good news story, did you know that the TDSB has a sawmill? So this is located in one of our admin sites out in the west end of the city in Etobicoke. But we actually have TDSB skilled trades that work with fallen trees. Started out from the emerald ash borer that really did a number on a lot of trees in the TDSB. We had a lot that came down. And so rather than just getting rid of that wood, that valuable resource, these logs and wood was actually repurposed into outdoor seating and also into wood that was used for technical programs at the TDSB. And this continues to go on. We actually have a partnership with the city where we get trees and wood that have come from city property as well as our TDSB properties. And it's a really great way that we are able to take something negative and turn it into a positive for our school environment. Okay, so if you're looking for more of these stories to share, take a look at that website. On the landing page, you'll find this timeline, and hopefully there are some good news that you can find there that'll help inspire you and keep you motivated, because the board is taking this seriously and is taking good action, and we should be celebrating it.
Linda, do you want to talk? I've got a couple of great things in the chat. I'll address the waste and how we can work with caretakers. But maybe about wood for classrooms, especially because you can talk about the outdoor learning portal, how to, that kind of stuff, especially how do we get stuff for our outdoor classrooms?
Yeah, so a really great resource to check out is the outdoor learning portal. That's the first one that I would look at, because on the outdoor learning portal, we address kind of the quick wins. We know that at the board, it's big. Processes take a long time. So if you're looking for quick wins, strategies to get you started right now in terms of collecting loose parts, in terms of quick wins, even for outdoor seating, things like picnic tables, we have resource links there. If you're thinking of a larger projects, maybe it's tree planting, maybe it's about getting those, beautiful wood seating areas or benches, that goes through a viability review process. And so you might have received maybe some of that already through school ground redesigns, or you might be entered into the process or the queue for a viability review to assess any of those kind of additions to your yard. So those are the two big ones that I would look at. For the viability review process, Chris can pop you in the chat. He'll pop the link on the environment website of where to go to get that. And so those are the two big ones that I would use, but be strategic and think about it. Are you thinking short term, you want to start using the outdoors and get out there right away? Then take a look at the portal for more of those short-term solutions versus the long-term viability review process.
Great. And I know that Karen Dobrecki is our Green Teams manager, and she's the one who's been coordinating the benches, the seats as they come available. Obviously, we don't have, unlimited supply, because as a tree, ash tree is cut down, then it's repurposed accordingly. But I will put, Karen is speaking on our webinar on October 27th. And talking about sort of what the board is doing with Richard Christie, and Linda's going to be there too, as well as Soraya, a grade 4 teacher who did a virtual eco team last year, and some high school students, again, telling you what's possible and kind of sharing their stories. So that link is to not only our conference, but the webinar. So yeah, Karen Dobrecki is the person, and I'll get her. Maybe someone could put her contact.
Yeah, Chris, you could put it in the contact, the staff team page. So also on the environment site, you'll find a meet the team staff list where you can find any of those people.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go through I want to address the waste. Waste is always an issue, especially around the masks and the COVID protocols. But one of the questions, oh, good. We got the solar calculation page up on the chat. So you can look with your students how much your solar panels, if you have them on your school. So I believe there was 311 schools that actually could have solar panels. Again, they were all assessed to see, what was viable. Before I move on to waste, is there any other questions for Linda? in terms of what the board's doing? What questions do you have? I see the second floor atrium as well, and that's definitely something we can address or talk to. Any other questions for Linda? Okay, we'll just stay on the chat there, Linda, as stuff comes up. So waste, I cognizant of, I want to give you a break as well, but I know that many of you came wanting to know, how do we do this with waste? And the most important thing to know is that there are going to be things that we cannot do this year. And we cannot recycle masks at this point. And Roxanne, you're absolutely right. We have been finding microplastics in human feces because of just the food we eat, the clothes we wash, and it's in our water system. So in addition to wearing masks, the only thing I can recommend, I've seen people put a cotton mask first and then put the board required mask over top. Of course, that would make you very hot. And with me with glasses, I fog up all the time. It's not an ideal solution for those, but it might reduce your intake. Because the Ontario ministry mandated these masks, we have to. It's in the policy. So unfortunately, we cannot wear our own masks, except for maybe under. The other option is buying the next level up, which is, I think, the N something mask, but those are expensive. But they do give you a little bit more of a cone, and they're higher level. So they exceed the standards of the mask that we're wearing. Caretakers are in charge of waste. So if you think about our waste streams, they are in charge of landfill, garbage that goes to landfill. They are in charge of recycling, and they are in charge of organics. And the reason they're in charge of all three streams is because we have a contract with the City of Toronto to pick up our waste. And City of Toronto has mandated that we have the recycling, we have the landfill, and we have the organics. Unfortunately, whenever we've had work to rule and the caretakers have been hit the hardest with staff cuts and whatever, so if we think we're bad, you should take a look at this, how QPD has been hit. Their only option, again, is to reduce some of their services. And so in the past, during work to rule, they have reduced the service of collecting recycling and collecting organics, and so putting everything in the landfill. But we are not in a work to rule situation, and so all of those streams should be happening. But then you add COVID on top of that. So in terms of recycling, if you have a eco team in your school, the idea when the board put out the eco team process with the recycling is that the eco team would work with the caretakers. We still have caretakers in this board who refuse to work with the eco team because they say the eco team gets it wrong and they want to do it really well. And so I applaud those caretakers who have really taken ownership and want to do it the best. But if the eco team could have that conversation with the caretakers and figure out a way to either have it go down to a central place, or different cohorts have different schedules, or put the bins out in the hall for different people, close contact when we pass other people in the hall. So that doesn't break your cohort rule. Kids could carry the recycling bin as they would with attendance or something down to a localized place, and that does not break your cohort rule. We'll put this in an email, and we are working with an amazing person at the top, a new person named Maya. Chris, what's her last name? She comes from Halton. She is so pro-environmental, and she is in charge of facilities. So she wants us to put together whatever, and then she'll communicate it out. So we're so excited about that. The second part is the organics. The organics is tough because that kids, if they're going to drop something like Kleenex or paper towel, they can't be touching something to opening the bin. So you need to get rid, either have an open bin, and Kleenex and paper towel, the rules are changing. So we just found out on Tuesday that paper towel can now go in organics. And those bins can be lined. And so the small bins can be lined. And again, the same thing could happen. A student could take the plastic small bin, or take the plastic that's full of paper towel, bag full of paper towels, and then drop it into a larger, what we call the 12-gallon bin. And then it could go either to the bulk bin or to the large bin. And caretakers are in charge of those 12-gallon waist-high bins. Again, I'll put this all in an email and a newsletter so you've got it. But they are not in charge. Let's say they pick up the recycling and it's contaminated. They've been instructed, whether it's organics or recycling, if it's contaminated at all, they do not uncontaminate the bag and put it in recycling. So if they see that the bag is contaminated, they're going to put it in landfill. And that's the right thing to do. Contaminated bag gets to the recycling center, it will contaminate bins and bins of recycling, and in fact do a worse service. And unfortunately, we know recycling isn't the answer either. Reducing is. So those goose paper bins are so valuable, and boomerang lunches are still important. The last thing I'll say is about the snack program. So Durwood reached out to us. We're going to meet with Durwood. He's in charge of many of the snack programs across the city. And one thing, I think actually it was Crest Haven, I know Jen's here. Yes, you can compost without lining with plastic, absolutely. In organics, let's say you have a snack program and each class could have a little paper bag that the apple cores in that go in. It's open. They could dump their apple cores in, roll up the plastic or paper bag, and that paper bag could then go down the hall. So bottom line, before I release you for break, and you're welcome to stay on and ask questions, we'll have another time for questions, is if your caretaker isn't sure or you're finding that there's pushback, have a conversation and say, my understanding is this, can we work together? If it doesn't go past that, wonderful. But if you have to keep going, then the principal, you can call me, we'll bring in the FTL, and that sometimes clears up misunderstandings the best. We did have caretakers that have hidden recycling bins from the whole school. We've had caretakers that don't show up on those meetings. So you're not alone. It does happen, but we also have caretakers that are amazing. I think it was West caretaker would literally make sure that the garbage that went out to this curb was perfect. So they're like us. We work with each other. We come to common values and understandings, and then we move forward. But ultimately, if you can't do it, it's not the mountain you want to die on this year. We're going to have to let it go, especially with the mask waste. We're just going to have to say, let's connect kids to nature. Let's connect kids to climate change education. Let's make them more hopeful. If we can do that this year, waste is 6 gigatons per year. There are other things like, teaching about plant-based diets and food that are more powerful. So that's my soapbox. Sorry about that. We're going to take a break. Feel free if you have a specific question, you still want to ask me, I'm happy to do that. Oh, I know. We can't solve everything this year. We'll try and keep it small and keep it successful. But could you please take a break, walk, coffee, take a drink break, stretch, and we'll come back. Chris, can we make it a 10-minute break and come back at 10:20?
Sure. Am I the boss? Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll see you at 10:20. Take a 10-minute break. And feel free to ask more questions. Karen, I know at the snack program is crazy, and that's why we're going to work with Durwood on what can be done, because the single use is, it may not just be what we can do this year.
And addressing the plastic bins to line compost bins, yes, that's acceptable. They do have a machine that scoops out all the plastic bags to separate the organics, so that's totally okay.
Yeah, so Peter, both bins can be lined, absolutely.
So Karen, we don't have any guidance on extracurriculars. That's above our pay grade. but certainly the best suggestion for an eco club would be to do it virtual, whether that's during school hours or after school. You'll have to try and work out the best way to do that. But we have had some schools do that last year, especially high schools, and they were very successful with a virtual eco club. We do have a webinar coming up. I think it's October 27th. Let me double check that, where we have one of those teams talk about how they were able to do the virtual eco club. And I'll just confirm that date here. October 27th is the webinar for that. And I'll put the webinar page into the chat. Well, absolutely, you could do it outside if you could get that to work for you and your students. I don't see an issue with that, other than organizing, being outside and trying to take notes or whatever as it gets colder. Hi, Ryan. We're just in a break for 7 more minutes. So if you're all right hanging on till then, we'll get you
no problem.
Talking to everybody.
All right. Thank you. How's it been going the last few days?
It's been going pretty well, I think. We've had some big crowds, so that's
nice.
That's been fun and successful.
It is. Are a lot of these schools like new to the program, or they've done it in the past?
We have about 38% new and 40 something. Oh, wow. Well, and the rest of them have done this before.
Done this before, probably not with our new platform.
No. So yes, I think pretty much everybody will be new to the EcoSchools Canada platform.
Nice. Okay. So you walk them through it. That you give them a tour during the session. Yeah. Yes,
we take them through registration and getting started with an action.
Nice. Well, it's fun. It's pretty exciting seeing what'll happen this year. I'm doing these tours all over the country, actually. So I get to be in Manitoba and East Coast and West Coast. It's very nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, it should be a lot more schools than last year.
Well, last year was an exceptional year. Yeah. I kind of had nice numbers, and we're like, okay, so we got this pandemic to deal with. I don't think too many people are enthusiastic, but we got 1,200 schools, I think, still registered for our platform last year, which was amazing. That's pretty amazing. TSB has what, like 100 schools? Is that about right? Does TSB have about 300 schools? Is that approximately?
No, with high school and elementary, it's closer to 600, 5 something.
Oh, maybe it's 300 participants. Maybe that's what it is that I'm thinking of then. So
that's hopefully we get 300 schools up this year.
Okay.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. So you send an email to all the schools, and then about half of them kind of respond and say they're interested potentially.
Yes, and there's been some schools that haven't had an opportunity to get into the EcoSchools program like ever. So we'll be trying to focus on reaching out to them and getting them involved with the new and improved EcoSchools Canada application.
Yeah, well, it's hopefully less intimidating than it was before.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the idea. I also try to encourage them through getting the students to kind of do most of the work now, rather than having the teacher kind of do it all. If it's possible, I mean, I don't know. Are you encouraging?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the suggestions we're going to make, especially with cohorting, is to divide up the actions. So one class can deal with a couple of actions specifically, and have the kids log in and fill them out.
Cool. Oh, fun. Okay. We've got a few more actions that'll join this year. I'm meeting with the Greenbelt later today. We got a grant from them, so there'll be a Greenbelt action card.
Oh, fantastic.
We'll launch here. People are interested in learning about the Greenbelt.
I guess that's more specific to schools that are within the Greenbelt.
Well, it's both. It's going to be all of Ontario. Actually all of Canada, technically, but we're anticipating mostly Ontario will be tracking it with. And the schools that are in the Greenbelt, there'll be an option for them to kind of get a grant, which is nice. to actually do some plants and shrubs on their school grounds. And for non-Greenbelt schools, I guess there won't be the funding opportunity, but there will still be the learning opportunity. And you can still grow this stuff, but you wouldn't be able to get, the grant for it.
Right, right. So the question from Taylor Creek, yes, right after Ryan gives the intro to EcoSchools Canada, we will walk through what that's going to look like for you guys getting started with the EcoSchools certification application. Definitely part of the plan.
Nice.
Yeah, we want everyone walking away crystal clear as to how they're going to proceed for the rest of the year. And again, Pam mentioned that we will be doing eco-coaching sessions. So anytime you have a snag, we're not exactly sure. We'll probably set it up through my path. That's not done yet, but yeah, we'll be able to reach out to you throughout the year and help out with any issues. But the schools that did do the program last year as the pilot, they were able to fly through it with very, very little resistance. So we think you'll find it's a lot easier than EcoSchools has been in the past, which is a good thing.
We'd love for you to spend most of your free time doing EcoSchools programming, but we thought might be easier to make it more straightforward in our platform. So.
Yeah, we mentioned that it used to be a bit like filling out your taxes, and
yeah, that's always fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Now you might even think about it as being gamified a little bit.
That's actually what I said. Yeah, exactly. It is a little gamified, so it motivates you. It tracks you as you go. So anyway, they haven't seen it yet, so I won't ruin any surprises you have. But,
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got about a minute left before we're going to get going.
Okay.
Oh, small perennial garden at the
front. Hi, Pam.
Hey, Ryan. Yeah.
Nice guitars. Look at this.
Thank you.
Is that a drum too behind you?
A bow drum. I've got a djembe, a cahoon.
Oh my God! What is a cahoon?
I wonder if I can
show you. Not a singular of kahunas.
Yeah, the printer's sitting on one, but you sit on it, and then you.
Okay, I've seen it before. I didn't know that what it was called. Okay, amazing. Wow, you play all these?
I do not. It would be my partner, Tim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I met him when he was a poor rock star.
And now he's a big superstar, is he?
No, he's a teacher.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the class loves it if he brings that.
Yeah. My Wi-Fi, I apologize, is crazy, so we'll see.
That's all good.
All right. Well, we're at 10:20, and can't tell if everyone's back or not, but we will get the show on the road. So welcome, Ryan from EcoSchools Canada. He's going to give a little intro about the EcoSchools Canada program and why we are doing this. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Pam. Thanks for all of you for coming today. This is so exciting to see TSP launch this year's EcoSchools program. My name is Ryan. I'm one of the directors at EcoSchools. Been in the program for over a couple of years. And that might not sound like a lot compared to what some of you might been doing with this program. We've been in Ontario for 15 years now. And we are actually now a national program. We launched nationally last year. Kind of a challenging year to do that during a pandemic, but we still had 1,200 schools across the country participate. And we're so excited to have the TDSB take on this kind of new version of our platform. It's a lot more easy to use if you've used it in the past, as Chris will show you. You've got support from Chris and his team this year, which is super exciting that you guys have that resource there. Of course, we're still available, our team, to answer some other application-related questions. We have frequently asked questions on our website. But overall, this is hopefully going to be a lot of fun for you and your eco team this year to participate. Take on waste reduction. If you want to learn how to calculate CO2 emissions in your building, you'll be able to do that. There's a lot of leadership opportunities for students, professional development opportunities for yourself through our website, our YouTube channel, and our webinars, and just the support that we can provide through programming and connecting to curriculum. with our platform. So with that, I really hope you guys have a very successful session and a wonderful year as an EcoSchool. I look forward to meeting some of you during the application process at the end of the year and seeing your progress throughout.
Great. And Ryan, as I've done with the other Eco Canada folks, just a question, and tell us in terms of if you're new to EcoSchools, what's the experience like being part of this big conglomerate?
Yeah, we're a big conglomerate now. Yeah, this kind of small charity that we run here with thousands of volunteers across the country, including yourself. So, the experience, you are part of this community where we've kind of made this program where EcoSchools platform allows you to compare your school to other schools and kind of track progress throughout. But really, it's not intended to be competitive with other schools, though there are amazing stories happening throughout the country, and we do highlight throughout the year. But it's really about bringing your school up to the highest level it can be, the most sustainable it can be. There's quite a lot. You are all active in very large buildings with hundreds, if not 1,000 students in some cases. Largest school board in Canada in your case. So there's going to be a lot of large schools there, and the impact is massive. And everybody needs to make everybody who cares about the environment, and a lot of students do, wants to feel like they're having an impact. What we've tried to do with our platform is allow you to see that impact tangibly, to communicate that impact to your school and show it off. Provide opportunities for leadership that will hopefully translate into a much more sustainable civilization here in Canada and globally. Amongst the EcoSchools community. This EcoSchools community in Canada is thousands of schools strong this year, but it is actually in 70 countries around the world. So we're part of this international network as well. And maybe not this year, but in future years, as you guys really take on this program and enjoy the platform, there will be opportunities to potentially connect with other countries even, and compare the work and we'll collaborate on sustainability initiatives. There are international contests as well that we host within the platform. That might be something. So whether you teach English or whether you're teaching science and you want to go for a nature walk, there's just a lot of opportunities within the platform to select what you think is most appropriate for your school, how you want to design it, customize it for your school and your team. So it is very easy to do that, as you'll see, and it should be a lot of fun along the way.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Just an out there question, I think actually it came from Natasha in our conversations. Does EcoSchools, like the whole international thing, do they have a role at Glasgow this coming climate change
summit? Often they do. Often there is a representative from what the organization is called FEE, the Foundation for Environmental Education. I wasn't at the national operators meeting that happened recently, but they've probably brought it up. Occasionally there are opportunities for students to attend. I think with COVID now they're not doing that, but maybe in future years, kind of winners of these kind of global initiatives, like the Young Reporters for the Environment initiative, sometimes get invited to those to report there as a journalist, as an environmental journalist. So that is something that's interesting. Nobody from my organization will be there personally. So I mean, that's one thing. But internationally, there's often representation from FEE, yes.
Nice. Okay, because it's, we do this work and we just want to make sure that youth voices and the actions that we do are making a difference in the leaders, right? All right. Well,
sure.
Thank you, Ryan. Again, just call out great stuff that you offer. Thanks for the French. Thanks for all the campaign things. Yeah.
Okay, my pleasure. Have fun today and have a great year. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
All right, so I am going to now walk everybody through how to register in the ECA, and I'll be referring to working with EcoSchools Canada as the ECA because that is their EcoSchools certification application, and you don't want to say that 10 times fast. And I'll just go over the mini agenda that I have for us. And first of all, where the heck is their website? We'll show you that. How do you register yourself? So that'll be our first step. you'll be picking an avatar for your account, registering your school. Again, if that hasn't been done already, and I suspect most of your schools have not been registered into and added to their database, but perhaps if you were part of the pilot last year, your school will already be there. We'll need to enter a very brief amount of school information. We will go over adding other people into the system. So that was a question in the chat. How do we add somebody else? It's super simple to do. We will start a plan together. This is something that has to be done each year. So like our EcoSchools program in the past, you had to register your intent to do the program every year. And it's the same with EcoSchools Canada. Show you how to add and remove actions. So as Ryan was saying, everything is customizable. No two schools have to do the same actions, except for a couple. I'll show you what the actions look like, how they're structured, and we will get started with your first action so you get a little taste of what it's like to work in the ECA. Now, we will be, as I'm guiding you through this, I'll give you time to do it yourself on your computer. So you'll be kind of swapping between Zoom and your browser, and but don't do anything till I start the timer, and then because I'll make sure all the steps are clear before we do that. And if you can't help yourself and you get ahead of where we are on the slides, not a big deal. Just kind of hang back and let us catch up to you. So this is what their login page looks like, and I'll give you the URL in a second. But when you load this up, the only thing you're really going to need to do is tap on that register button, and that's going to get the process started. So the login page is app.ecoschools.ca. Natasha is going to put that in the chat, so you can just click on that. But again, wait for the timer. You can do this in English or French, and you can toggle the language at any time, and it'll just change everything on the web page. So once you get that loaded in, you're going to click the register button, and there's the timer, 30 seconds. Maybe I'll give you a bit more time to switch to your browser. After you could click the link in the chat, and that'll open up your browser if it isn't already. And just have to click the register button, and that's it. That's all you got to do in the 30 seconds, 10 seconds. And if you have any issues, just pop that into the chat. I'm going to open up the chat window so I can see that as well. Thank you, Natasha, for putting that link in there. So contact information page, this is for, if you registered already, then just hang tight. You just do the login, Peter. You won't need to do the register part, unless you want to register somebody else on your team that you know is going to work with you. But contact information, this is your personal contact information. So pretty straightforward. You can just fill it out as needed. Your own password. Please use your TDSB email. That they do want you to use your official email. And I'm going to give you guys a minute to finish your contact information. Deborah, if you go to the website and click on register, then yes, everybody that is going to be using the tool should register. Nicole. And you can click on that register button on their website, app.ecoschools.ca. There's another way to do it as well. Within the if somebody's logged in, you can add other people, and we'll cover that in a moment.
And I just wanted to put that those of you who have already registered, you figured out this system, you've added a plan, we're not offended if you mute us and work on other things. But we will be doing a sharing session at 11:10. But Chris has really wanted everybody to walk away successful, registered, knowing how to add team members, knowing about students, knowing about the plans, action cards, etc. So if that's you, we'll make sure we guide you, holding your hand all the way through.
All right. So if you've got everything filled out, you can click the next button, and I'll do the same thing. And they do give you the opportunity to pick a cute animal or insect, or you can actually upload your own image file if you like. Your choice. Not sure if you can skip it, but maybe you can and just have a generic avatar. But once you pick your avatar or not, click next, and I'll give you 30 seconds for this stage. Yes, there will be this video that we'll be sharing with you, plus EcoSchools Canada has a selection of videos that do pretty much the same thing as this. They break it down into just registering and just working on adding a user and just working on your plan. All right, I think we're probably ready to keep going. Now, this next part is the trickiest stage of registering. So let me explain the whole thing first before you go ahead and try it. But you need to start with your school's address. So I suspect you know that. And if your school appears, if it's already in the database, you can select it and go straight to the dashboard. But probably your school will not show up in the list, and I'll show you what that looks like. And you'll be clicking the Can't Find Your School link so that you can enter your school manually. And you only have to do this once. Once your school's in the system, then you won't need to do it next year. And again, please don't do anything till the timer starts so I can explain all the pitfalls here. So you can start typing in, or when you do start typing in your school's address, it's a little bit like a Google Maps autocomplete field. So you'll start to see other addresses show up underneath as options. And when you see the full address appear in the options, you'll want to click that. Once you do that, you'll see a list of schools appear that are in, I guess, the general area. And if you see your school in that list, fantastic. You can click it and you're done. But likely you're not going to see your school here. And that's when you're going to click on the Can't Find Your School link that's down at the bottom right. When you click on that, the interface changes a little bit, and you'll need to enter in the name of your school manually. So put the full name in as you like it to appear. Obviously, you're probably elementary unless any secondary people snuck in, which is fine. And also add in the school board. So I think just start typing in Toronto and you'll see the TDSB show up. There's the Can't Find Your School link if you forgot about that. And down at the bottom, select teacher. And if you're a teacher, that is, there's other options. And click the agree to the terms of use. I don't think anything bad happens in the terms of use. You don't have to give up your children or anything like that. And I'll give you a minute now to switch over to your browser and fill in your school if you need to. And again, any issues, you can pop those into the chat or just turn on your mic. This is the smoothest registration yet.
This is the gifted group. Didn't I tell you?
There we go. There we go. All right. So,
or maybe it's the group that's got a lot of coffee.
Whatever floats your boat. In a valid token, Roxanne, did you register before and you're just trying to change your password, or you're at the entering my password and personal information stage? I'm not really being part of their technical team. I'm not sure why you're getting that error message. You registered before, okay. Did you use the login button then? Assuming you remember your password. And if you clicked, I forgot my password, then I would try reloading the page and starting again. That may help. But I'm afraid I can't give you any better advice than that at this point.
Yeah, I think they do have a forgot my password button.
Yeah. So I think she's probably doing that, and I don't know if they have any limitations on what you can use in your password. I don't think there is, but you might be using a symbol or something that they don't like. Okay, and Chantel's doing the same thing. Okay, Chantel says you need 2 numeric characters, so try that, Roxanne, and see if that, oh, you did. Okay, we'll try and, we haven't done that yet, KR. That's coming up in a moment, adding another person. So if you've got your school information put in here, you can tap on the next button. We're gonna continue for now. And just need some very basic information about your school at this stage. And if you are not sure about the enrollment number or the number of staff at your school, you can totally guesstimate. This information could be updated at any time. And in fact, it's going to be re-entered in one of the actions that we're going to look at today. So best guesses is perfect for this. And I've got 30 seconds for this stage and to let anybody else catch up.
Yes, Sunday, if you feel confident creating a plan, the only problem with creating a plan is that you can't change the plan, but you can change the actions. So we're just recommending everybody choose the getting started, but we'll get there soon.
Yeah, maybe just hang on Sunday, and because we'll be there in the next step here.
And maybe while you're there, yeah, just explore the dashboard, because you're just kind of figuring out what's what.
There won't be much there until you get a plan, but all right. My timer's over, so I'm going to keep going. And that's pretty much it. You can click on continue and you're going to get to the dashboard, but just hang on for anything else at the moment. Any other questions at the moment? And Michael, we'll cover all of that in just a moment when we talk about the plan. But it's very easy to do. Yeah. Again, this platform is super flexible. Yes, you need to have at least 101 points. So as long as your action cards add up past that, then we're going to pop a link in there for you, Liz. There we go. Okay, once you open that up, Liz, click on the register button, and it's actually really straightforward. Just, oh, yeah, we hear that. But I am going to keep going for everybody else. So it's still epic, it is. Thinking about other people that you want to add to the ECA, you only want to do that for people that you know are going to be helping you fill in your EcoSchools questions for the actions. If you've got parents that help out with activities in the garden or anything else like that, but they don't actively help you, fill in the questions for EcoSchools, they don't need to be in the system. One issue at the moment is that you can't delete people that you add to your school yet. We're going to be working with EcoSchools Canada to add that. I think it's going to be a handy thing. But for now, you're just going to have a big list of people that may or may not be helping out. As far as students go, when you create a student account, and you have to do that yourself for your students, students can't add themselves in. You don't need to use their names, and you can't use any emails. So we are protecting the students' privacy in the system, and they have limited access. They can answer questions, but they can't delete actions or add actions or submit or anything like that. Otherwise, it's super easy, and we're going to walk through how you might add somebody. And you don't need to do this. I'll show you how to do it. You don't need to, unless you have another colleague or somebody that you know is going to help you out. So we were looking in the, don't do this yet, of course, but we moved to the administration section in the menu, and then click on users, and you will see whoever, it's probably just you right now, unless you've already been in the system. So you can see who's here and what roles they have. Up at the top is the plus button to add a new person to your school. And when you click on that button, you'll get a dialog that comes up, and there are 3 different roles that you can choose at this point. And they're pretty straightforward there. If you pick a staff member or volunteer, then you will be putting in their email address and their name at least, or username. I'll show you what it looks like when you choose a student. The email field disappears, and you really just have the username. And so you could do student 1, student 2, etc. if you want to keep it kind of anonymous. You could use their first name if you wanted to keep track of the different students, or you could just have one student account that you share with all of your students that you want to log in. It's, again, flexible, kind of up to you how you want things to work. And the name parts are optional. On my screenshot here, I would have to, they want me to search for a school, but because like I have access to all the schools, but your school should be there and you don't need to choose that. Why would you add a student? Well, the idea is that we want to get students involved in the eco actions, that they're the ones that, you can't hear me. Okay, then maybe does my signal look weak, Pam?
I've got you, Chris. So Sunday, oh, thanks. Sunday, our internets are in and out, so yours might be having the same problems that we've been having. With the closed caption is an option at the bottom. You can enable it if you go to more and you go to play subtitles. Then you can add the closed caption, and that way, just in case the audio goes out.
Thanks, Pam.
Sorry,
Chantel, unfortunately,
actually, continue on why students should be part.
Yes, thank you. I'll finish that thought. Yes, we do want students involved in working with the EcoSchools application, and as part of the cohorting, we're even suggesting that you may assign certain actions to certain classes in your school so that you can get everybody involved, but without, physically interacting. And it's perfectly legitimate to have the students fill the stuff out. Obviously, you'll want to go over anything that they add, and you don't necessarily have to have devices for each student. They could do this at home. They could do this in the library or wherever you've got computers. I don't know what restrictions you've got in school about students using computers that are shared. That could be an issue. Perhaps things will get better later in the year. We'll have to kind of see. But this is not behind the firewall. This is publicly accessed, so you could do this from home. This is another reason why we went with the EcoSchools Canada application. But yes, definitely getting students involved will be a good thing. And as far as extra people in your user list, we can't delete them yet, but I do want to get EcoSchools Canada to add that functionality. We do have a special arrangement with them to customize our interface in the ECA. And I think that's going to be a really valuable tool, especially if people, just make a mistake and they get their email wrong or who knows what. You can't actually go and even edit your email. That's one of the only things that you can't edit with your account. So we'll definitely work with them on that. All right, so that's pretty much it about adding a user, whether they're students or staff members or volunteers. And I'm just going to move on there. So the protein and potatoes part of the ECA is making your plan. And there's over 40 actions that you can choose from, and it sounds like they keep adding new ones. So Ryan mentioned the Greenbelt action that they're going to be introducing probably in January. That's I think they do things in the fall and then in January when they add new items. So that could be, there could just be more things as time goes on. You can very easily add or subtract actions from your plan at any time, even like the day before you want to submit in May. and there's something that you didn't get around to doing or couldn't do, you can delete it out of your plan and it won't, impact anything.
Chris, my Wi-Fi is going wonky again. I was trying to answer something in the chat, but Nicole wanted to know how we link our dashboard. But I believe that once they're signed up, as you've shown in the users, the dashboard then becomes shared.
Yes. Basically, you're adding people to your school. So when you registered yourself, but you had to add your school, you also registered your school. So you and your colleagues, anybody that you add, are under the umbrella of your school, and they'll all see the same dashboard. So as any actions get worked on, you'll see the points start to accumulate, and everybody has access to that.
And Val came up with a really good suggestion. You could call it Class 101 and come up with a log information for that.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic idea, to have a class login. That's a great idea.
And you just need an email attached to it. That's the only thing.
Okay. So Michael and Emma says the window pops open and you've added all the fields, but the save button is gray and you can't save it or accept it. I'll have to ask EcoSchools Canada or try it myself. There may be some small glitches in their application. I wouldn't expect it in this part, but perhaps there is. I'll have to get back to you, Michael, on that. But again, you can do this anytime. It doesn't have to be today, but we'll try and work that out for you. Sorry that it's not working. Technology, right? In general, though, anytime, like each year, each fall, when you register your school and come up with a plan, choose actions that make sense for your school and your situation. Everybody can have a completely different plan. There's no real restrictions except for a couple actions that everybody has to do. And especially during COVID, pick things that you know are going to be easy to achieve. And EcoSchools Canada actually suggested this year and last year as well that don't worry about the points. Don't fret over how many points you have. Just do things that you know you're going to succeed in and that are easy to accomplish given, the situation that we've got with COVID.
And back to our shopping metaphor, this platform is really like a shopping cart. You're adding actions to your shopping cart and you're subtracting actions from your shopping cart.
Exactly. And the deadline is the middle of May. So May 13th, I believe, is the deadline in 2022. And that's really the only thing you have to worry about. You can, you don't even have to register in the fall. You could register later. Of course, earlier is better to get the ball rolling and get your students involved. But it's not like the EcoSchools program was in the past where there was a deadline to register. Otherwise, you were, not able. So it's, again, the flexibility is much better. Here is a little menu of the 40 plus actions. We'll put a link in the chat so that you can take a look at this. This might be a great way with your eco team to kind of start deciding on what actions make sense for you. No, you start at 0 every year, and it depends on how far you get with your actions. That will determine your level of certification. And that's pretty much the same as EcoSchools in the past. If you didn't do the work, you don't get the certification. So that's pretty much the same here. But again, it's really easy to get up to even platinum. The evaluation will be an audit by EcoSchools Canada. This is their platform. We will also try and meet with as many schools as we can, and probably virtually this year. With EcoSchools Canada, it will be virtually. They won't be able to physically visit all the schools. They're dealing with thousands of schools. And from a eco perspective, it makes a lot of sense to do it virtually. No one's driving around to do visits. But we'll see how things happen in the spring with what our situation is like. So I'll talk quickly about the dashboard. That is the thing that you see every time you log in, and especially now when you do your first registration of the year, It's where you can create your plan and choose actions. Of course, you can do that anytime, but it's where you monitor your progress and kind of see where things are at. At this point, you'll have an option to choose a themed plan that EcoSchools Canada has put together, or you can just kind of start from scratch and just add the actions that you want. Again, no matter what you choose, you can always remove actions that you don't think you want to do. And we'll cover that in just a sec. So here's kind of what the dashboard looks like when you haven't got a plan. So we don't see the time or the progress bar or any of our action cards yet. We've just kind of got the deadline. And that's, I think, that may have been their first deadline, but I believe it's May 13th now. But at this point, you've been waiting so patiently to click the Create Plan button if you haven't done so already. And that's going to get us started. And I'll just put a 30-second timer there for everyone to get to the dashboard. You can see on the menu on the left, the blue box, that dashboard's up at the top. The other way you can do it is just click on Our Plan. The Create Plan button kind of takes us to that same place. Deborah will kind of cover that in a sec, how you can tell where your points are coming from. All right, timer's up. So when you, again, when you're choosing your plan, they have in the past had, choose bronze, silver, gold, platinum. But this year they've got these themed plans, which are kind of interesting. And again, you can choose one of these that you think seems interesting. We're going to suggest that we use the Getting Started plan. It throws in some basic actions, and again, we can add or remove those. But just as a suggestion, but you could click on any of them. So give you 30 seconds to think about your plan. The thing is, if you choose a plan, you can't come back and pick a different one. You're kind of stuck with that, but you can customize it. You can add and subtract.
Chris, my computer is completely logged or frozen, so all I can do is talk.
Okay, well, that's working. All right, so once you've picked a plan and it's the Getting Started plan, fantastic. You will now see your plan progress, what you're eligible for, and any points accumulated. And as you add points, as you answer questions in the actions, that little green dot becomes a green bar as it extends across. And you can start to see as you hit different milestones, as you pass the bronze level and silver and so on. So it's, again, that's the kind of gamification part of this platform that could encourage your students to want to do more and more as they watch, your points accumulate. Absolutely, Kay Bridgman, as you add more actions, your eligibility goes up, right? So as long as you choose enough actions to get over the 101 threshold, then you'll definitely be able to go past bronze. But it lets you see, like, as you go through the year, where your progress is at the moment. So if you scroll down from your progress bar, you will see the action cards that have been chosen for Getting Started. You may not have the same ones that I have. I took my screenshot not from the Getting Started plan, but the first two are going to look the same. But when you mouse over these action cards, you get that little delete button showing up at the top. So again, at any point, if there's an action that you don't want to do, you can click on that delete button. You'll get a little confirmation message if you are sure you want to do that, and you can remove that action. Students don't get to do that, so you don't need to worry about them messing around with the plan. The two plans, environmental legacy or literacy, and Getting Started, those have a lock symbol, so you can't delete those. And that may change from year to year, which actions EcoSchools Canada has determined everybody has to do. I suspect these two will always be locked. And depending on the plan that you choose, there may be other ones that get locked. But for this year with COVID, they're just doing the two. You clicked on getting started. Yes, you can't change it, Anna. That is perhaps one of the limitations of their plan choosing system here, but you can add any actions that you want or remove ones that you don't want. So again, it's still flexible. I'm just going to show you what it looks like in the library, and that's where you can find any of the other 40 plus actions that you may want to add. So when you go to the library, we're in our plan right now, we're going to switch to the library, you can see all the other actions appear. And those actions have a plus button. So again, pretty simple. You find an action that you want to add to your plan, and you click on the plus button, and it goes into your plan. And it'll disappear from the library unless you check that box at the top that says show actions already in our plan. But it's kind of nice not to see what you've already chosen, but you can toggle that as you need to. There's one action that I want to point out. You may be doing something kind of unique at your school that you consider an eco action, and perhaps you've gotten points for it in the EcoSchools program in the past, but you don't see it in the actions that EcoSchools Canada has. So you can use the create your own and add that to your plan, and all you need to do is just type in an explanation about what it is that you're doing, who's involved, how many hours you spend on it, and stuff like that. You'll see if you add that action, what you need to add in. And there's 3 of those. So there's 3 different ones that you can add if you've got special things you want to get points for. By getting back to our plan, I'm going to focus on the getting started card, and in a moment I'll get you to do the same. We're going to fill out some information in getting started and just talk about how this works. So here's the anatomy of an action. All the actions will look like this. We've got our 4 kind of intro tabs across the top: about, curriculum, SDGs, and EcoSchools in action. The about gives you a deeper explanation, of the action. So on the card, you see a little blurb. Here's the more detailed blurb. Curriculum, see whatever links there are in that particular action to different subjects. And SDGs from the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Apparently this one's connected to all of them, but they're usually 2 or 3 or 4 SDGs that you'll see per action. And EcoSchools in action shows you what other schools are doing for this particular action, and you can click on the images and see a little explanation about what's kind of happening. I suspect these are all just eco teams, and not a whole lot of detail there. There's also the action guide, the resource section, and the certification questions, and we'll cover those in turn. The action guide is where you're going to get the nitty-gritty about the action and what you need to do to get started, who you need to involve, some tips, and other materials that you'll be needing to complete the action. And a lot of those are PDFs. And again, a lot of the materials, in fact, probably most of the materials are in French and English. Carolyn, there's no real level anymore. So it's just how many actions you add to your plan to get your points over the 101 for the platinum level. So again, very flexible. And, one platinum school can do something completely different from a different platinum school. Moving on to the resource section, these are all the different worksheets and planners and whatnot that you may need to use to help you complete the action, or you may need to do them for the action. So you can take a look at all of those. Michael will cover that in just a sec when we actually fill in the questions. So that's actually how it gets started, is when you start filling in the questions. And here we go. Here's the certification questions. And that start date there, I believe, Michael, is what triggers it all off. So by putting a start date in there, your action will now be started, and you don't have to finish off, right this second. You can come back and keep adding to your actions throughout the year. And some actions you may have to do that, right? You can't fill it in right away. This particular getting started action does ask for your enrollment and staff again. I'm not sure why that's not linked to the info that we put in before, but maybe that'll get fixed in the future. And again, just go through the questions that are in here and answer them as best you can. And again, you can come back and change your answers at any time. If I scroll down, actually, I'm going to get you to do this right now. I want you to click on the Getting Started action card. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that so that you can kind of follow along here. Lori, we kind of, well, very briefly talked about reviewing the plans. We wanted everyone to choose the Getting Started plan. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. Those themed plans that they have are, I guess, just to make it a little bit more interesting. But you can add, if you want, you can add every action that they have. It's really up to you and you don't have to decide today. So my suggestion would be, that's why we say click the Getting Started one, because it has like 6 actions in it or so. And then talk to your eco team and discuss which actions that you want to also complete. No, the take me outs, like each action, you can fill in, I guess, how many times you've gone outside, but, and that does, I believe there's some different options there for how many times or how many hours, or I can't recall exactly how that's done, KR. But certainly the more times you do something like get outside, you get more points. But no, you can't keep adding the same action. All right, I think our time's up and we probably have everybody looking here. And I'm just going to, on the screen here, scroll down to the bottom of all of the questions, because you'll see that there is a come back later button. So that allows you to enter in information that you do know, and then click on that, and literally everything gets saved as soon as you start typing in the box, or if you navigate away from whatever text box you're in, everything's auto-saved. So even if you close your browser after entering stuff, it should be there when you come back. You don't actually have to click the come back later. One of the handy things about this action card system is that, again, all of the resources that you need for the action are contained within it. So you don't have to go navigating to different parts of the website to find any of the worksheets. They're all right here, embedded within the action. And when you need to add any documentation for it, down at the bottom here is the Add Attachment button, and you can attach PDFs, Word docs, photos, whatever you need to document what you've done. And so I really like that idea. Like before building your portfolio for the EcoSchools application, we had you do it in Google Drive and with folders everywhere, and you don't have to worry about that stuff. It's all organized within each action, which I think is going to make your life a lot easier. Taylor Creek, I think you in the action documentation box that's down here. It's actually just above, I think, where it says action documentation. Each action has that same box in it that you can type in exactly what you did, and that's where you can kind of add in all the different actions that you've done with different classes. But there is only one environmental literacy action card that you can enter into. And again, the more people that you add that are doing the action and the more hours that you've spent on that action, you get more points for that action. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a minute to enter in whatever you can for this action. Again, you don't need to worry about doing it complete right now. You can click that come back later button. And in fact, you may have to, and that's totally fine. I just want to get everybody a little taste of what our ECA is all about. And again, after our audits in the spring, the overwhelming feeling about using the ECA was that it was way easier than it has been in the past, and a lot more fun, and a lot less onerous. Our minute is up, and we do want to get you into the breakout rooms. So congratulations, you have started your first action, and you're well on your way to becoming a certified EcoSchool. And we're so excited that you've joined us today and are learning about this. And again, if you have any questions, please pop that into the chat. And again, when we share everything with you, we will have links to our office hours. You can search through that on MyPath. Just type in EcoSchools and you can find our office hours and sign up. But just to quickly go over what we've done, Pam shared us some new perspectives on climate action, how to stay positive and hopefully relieve the anxiety with your students. We've just done our registration for the ECA. You've added perhaps some new accounts if it was working. And we chose a plan and we started our first action. And of course, we had a blast doing it. And I certainly had fun walking you guys through this. But you're not done yet. So our homework for you is that you managed to get an eco team going. Perhaps that's virtually. Again, I know it's not going to be as easy as it has been in the past, but try and discuss with your eco team what other actions you want to add to your plan, how far you want to get in the certification. Again, maybe don't stress too much about points. We're not going to look down on anybody if you don't get platinum this year or even gold. Again, we're under extreme circumstances with cohorting and COVID. So give yourself a break, do what you can with what you have and where you're at. And don't stress. That's the main part. We don't need any more of that.
So I think what we'll do, Chris, is move on to the EcoSchools Cafe.
Yes.
And with the questions and the supports, again, I can't see the chat anymore. I can't even mute myself, and I can't even make breakout rooms. So
I'll do that.
limited to talking to you this way, but I think we're good. It's important that although we weren't able to provide planning time for you today, I think the next part will be valuable in terms of talking with your colleagues, using the wisdom in the room to brainstorm how you might move forward this year. We've heard from people using Google Classroom to organize your eco team. We've heard about giving action cards to cohorts. So different classes, the grade 8s could take on the water one. The kindergartens could do the walk to school because it makes sense with the graphs that they're learning. And so find actions that might work for you. Virtually, you might ask your admin to give you, a quarter of a day or a period to meet virtually during class time with the folks, or use the gym or the library to spread everybody out with masks, or while the weather's nice, even meeting outside. So there's some definitely creative ways, and we'll keep sharing them as you do it. But what we thought we would do is we'd put you in a breakout room with 3 to 4 other people and really just share what you think you're going to do, how you're going to do this, and maybe we'll come up with some ideas. When we come back at 11:25, we'll ask a few of you to share if you came up with some brilliant solutions, because we need that wisdom, and then we'll give you the last sort of wrap up and what to expect next. Chris, if you could do the honors of the breakout room.
I will do that, yes. And Stephen has a question about posters, and we will have an order form soon, but just email us what you think you need, and we can send that out to you. And I'm just going to open up the rooms now.
Welcome back, everyone. So there's a poll, an exit poll to see how we did today, see if we're meeting your needs. And I just want to let you know that we're here. We're here to help. So email us, join office hours. We hope to solve sort of problems. We can share screens then. There's conferences. Chris has got the conference poster up. And
go to chat.
Natasha, do you want to put up the link to the conference and webinars one more time? We've got partners. We'll be sending newsletters and adding you to that. But thank you so much for being part of it. Thank you for having the courage to launch again. I hope you see that these are doable. Small actions count. Oh, and thank you for adding the Great Canadian Shore Cleanup. So absolutely, we're just so thrilled that you're here and that you've joined us. Enjoy the rest of the day and be well. Thanks again, everyone.